My name is Joe Prony, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to talk about the Pygmalion effect and how it presents in today's modern world. The Pygmalion effect is also known as the Rosenthal effect, or you can call it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, the work on the Pygmalion effect was mainly done in 1964. Therefore, I think we should take a look at it today because modern society is very different than what it was in 1964, especially if you're dealing in the helping professions. We can talk about teachers for a second. These days, you're dealing with kids that are extremely entitled, narcissistic, don't know how to handle their emotions, and a lot of other negatives that you can name. So therefore, the Pygmalion effect is going to work differently with a group of people like this. So the first thing we need to do is get a good working definition of the Pygmalion effect. And what it is a psychological phenomenon in which high expectations, high standards, and a positive belief leads to improved performance. Now, on the flip side of that is the Golem effect, where low standards, low expectations, and not believing in somebody leads to a decreased performance. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, and I think it's very important. Of all the things that you hear today in the show, this might be maybe the most important. I'm not sure, but it's important for me. There's a lot of well-meaning, caring people out there, and they're parents, they're somebody in the helping profession. And for some reason, when they look at maybe somebody's race, their nationality, their skin color, maybe somebody of a different type of background, such as maybe they come from a very traumatic type of background, they have a family where somebody's an alcoholic or a drug addict, maybe they come from a single parent household, maybe they have a low socioeconomic background, something of that nature. Many people, again, very well-meaning, what they want to do is help a child from that type of background. And what they inadvertently do is lower their expectations, they lower their standards, and they have a belief that this person needs so much help that they just don't expect much of them. And ironically enough, it's been proven time and time again that that type of attitude actually leads to a decreased performance. It's not helpful. So again, although someone's trying to do the right thing and they think that they're being quote unquote nice, they're actually being extremely destructive. So let's take a look at this Pygmalion effect and its cycle. And we can use a lot of examples. I'm not a teacher, although I did want to be one when I was younger. I'm a therapist now, and I'm also a personal trainer. So maybe we'll use an example as from a personal training point of view. So the first part of the Pygmalion effect is that your expectations and beliefs about others influences and informs your actions towards other people. Here's an example. If you're a type of trainer that believes that everybody is equal, and you look at everybody as they have potential in order to get better. And because they come to see you and they're looking for help, you honor them by giving the best of yourself. And you know that although they might not become Mr. or Mrs. America, you know that they can improve themselves. And that's what you look for. And you try to do the best that you can. And so that will inform your action towards them. In other words, you'll give them the best of yourself. You'll give them all your knowledge. You will support them 100%. Now, unfortunately, because I've been in this business, the personal training business, for about 35 years, I've seen a lot of trainers that don't do that. Their expectations and beliefs about people are very much centered on how much money they have or how good they look when they first walk in the door. There's a lot of trainers out there that want to make themselves look good. So they want to have a clientele that's filled with beautiful people who look amazing. And then they want to take credit for that. So if they see somebody walking in the gym who's a potential client, first of all, they'll take a look at what kind of a car they drive, because then they'll know how much they can charge them. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if a person comes in and they already look good, or maybe they've competed in shows before, they're going to have a different type of attitude towards them. They're going to give them all of their time and attention. However, if somebody is coming in who hasn't trained maybe ever, and they do have some issues that they need to work on, like all of us do, they're going to maybe look down on them. And then the way they train them, they'll sit there on their phone and they'll scroll through, or they don't actually correct the client. They just let the client do their thing, and they're just not really involved. Or they're scanning the gym maybe for somebody else who's a little more beautiful that they want to spend their time with. So again, it's the belief about other people affects and informs your actions towards them. Now, how does it affect the client? Well, it affects them because they have a belief about themselves. If somebody is loved, cared, and supported, they tend to want to stand up for themselves. They do want to work harder. They do start believing in themselves, and they will do the work. Again, as a personal trainer, then the client will become more involved. You will see them become more diligent about their workouts. They'll become more diligent about their nutrition. But if somebody is not cared about, it's going to re-traumatize that person, and the person is going to have a very negative attitude about themselves because they think something's wrong with them. And then what's going to happen is they're not going to train hard. They'll probably quit, and they might turn to food to soothe themselves, so they end up worse off than what they had before. So again, so this will lead to, or influences them about their actions towards themselves, which may be very self-harming if they're treated negatively, or they'll have a very negative attitude towards the trainer. And sometimes what happens is that they never come back to the gym, and then they never get into a healthy lifestyle because they have an incredibly bad experience with that. So then what does that do in terms of the Pygmalion effect and the cycle? Well, that reinforces and verifies the belief about other people. In other words, you have the trainer. What's their belief? If you believe that everybody deserves to be cared about and everybody can improve, as the cycle goes around, your clients will get better, they will improve, and they will be steady clients. And it proves what you already know, and it verifies that everybody is worth something. But if you're the type of trainer that thinks somebody coming in off the street who's never trained before, maybe is, let's say they're overweight or they have some disability or physical injuries, you're thinking, well, this is a lazy person, they're not going to stick with it, they'll never stay with me long term. Guess what? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're putting a person in a position where you're not caring for them, you're not supporting them, and you're not helping them. You're actually outwardly abusing them, in a sense. They are going to quit. So the trainer thinks they're right because it verifies in their head that they're not going to stay and that they're lazy. So it's a circular fashion here. So the truth is that this has been studied for over 50 years. And it's true, it works. If you have positive belief about somebody, typically they're going to do better. If you have a negative belief about somebody and you set very low standards, you're going to get that. You're going to get a very negative and a decreased and a very poor performance. Let's go with the Pygmalion effect as opposed to the Gollum effect. Let's say we're looking to improve somebody, and we think of everybody as a person who has potential, not just a select few. We look at everybody as being able to improve. There's 4 major areas that will change when this happens. Number 1, the climate overall. In other words, if you're the caregiver, you will create a very friendly environment. Your behavior will be caring and loving and supportive, and you will treat your clients better. That's number 1. Number 2, you will give this person more of your time and more of your energy. And number 3, feedback. We're going to go over this a lot today. It's very important. When you care about somebody and you have high standards and expectations, you're going to give them more feedback. You're going to give them more constructive correction or corrective criticism or constructive criticism. And number 4, you're going to give a person more chances to succeed. We all fail, but you won't give up on them. You'll continue to work with this person, and you will show them where they made a mistake, and then you will help get them back on their feet, and then you'll try again. Now, this is extremely important because these 4 qualities here, do they work in today's environment? That's something that we really need to look at. Because how does feedback work with today's kids? How does giving people more chances work with today's children? And I can answer that question by starting with another question. And the question is, what are some major reasons why teachers are quitting at huge and alarming rates in this country right now? Now, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, we could say right off the top, they deserve to get paid more, of course. But let's move on from that. Here are some of the reasons why teachers quit. It's because they are receiving an overall lack of respect. They have to deal with dysregulated, disrespectful, entitled, narcissistic children. They're dealing with students who are physically and verbally abusive. They're dealing with their parents who are incredibly hostile towards them. Parents who think that they know better, even though teachers go to school for a lot of years, every parent seems to think that they know better than the teachers now. Parents are harassing, not just parents, the students are harassing teachers just for doing their jobs. And when we're dealing with students or kids and their parents, you're dealing with a lot of high conflict personality traits. And again, because it's worth saying, because it is a society that's based on narcissism, we're dealing with incredible selfishness and self-centeredness. That's the quality of people that we're looking at these days. And if that's true, and it is, let's go back over the Pygmalion effect and let's say the 4 things that have to happen in order for the Pygmalion effect to work. So with the climate today of the way children are, for example, and unfortunately a lot of adults, what happens when you offer a lot of constructive criticism and feedback? Well, most people today are incredibly and overly sensitive. They can't handle that. They take it as a mortal, punch to their psyche, that they can't handle criticism from the outside. And it becomes difficult to even help somebody these days. People can't handle criticism. They can't manage their emotions. They have no respect for authority. And so criticizing, even in the nicest of ways, trying to correct people, trying to give them more time, it ends up being an absolute waste of time. And you end up, if you're dealing with students or kids, you end up having altercations with their parents. This is really interesting. I've heard a lot of stories. I won't go through them all. I'll name some for me, though. I can tell you, as a marriage and family therapist, when I'm working with a young person, and I'm not even talking super young, I'm talking, let's say that they're 14, 15 years old. When you're working with somebody like that, and somebody like me does have high expectations and high standards, and I do believe in everybody that they can improve if they want to, try it. Because what you're going to get is a lot of pushback. And then what the kid does is complain to their parent, and then the parent complains to the therapist, more likely me. And then when they don't get what they want, because the conversation is, I think your child can do better, he has to do better, he has to be held accountable for his actions and behaviors, what I get is a hang up, and then they go call my boss and try to get me fired. So then you're stuck with, do you want to actually do your job? Now, here's the thing. in one sense, you could say, what's the job? The job is to help people. The job is to go into it and not be jaded. The thought that everybody can improve has to be part of any caregiver's arsenal, right? Like you can't just go in and go, well, this person comes from a disadvantaged background, let me give up on them. You can't do that. Even their own parents have given up on them. But as a caregiver, I can't do that. So am I actually trying to uphold a standard for my job? You could say yes, but I think it's more than that. I think I'm trying to uphold my standard as a human, because I think all humans should have that thought, that any time when you connect with another being, you have a chance to make that person better, and you also become better because of that alliance. But it's becoming more and more difficult to do that in this society. Continuing, part of it is that you create a friendly atmosphere. And you become, in a sense, you end up treating them better than you would a person where if you had no faith in them. However, does that work today? Well, of course it works sometimes. But again, in today's modern world where kids are totally disconnected, they're on their phones and they're doing their social media and they have no ability to interact socially. Again, complete disrespect for authority. When you're an authority figure and you're trying to create this alliance by being overly friendly and overly caring, all they do is walk all over you. You can ask any teacher about that, about how it's going today in our schools. They're all quitting. There's a reason for this. Because teachers are getting blamed for students not learning because the teachers supposedly aren't friendly enough and aren't creating enough close relationships with their children. That doesn't make sense. There is no way that teachers should get blamed for a child's inability to learn because they don't have a close enough connection with their children. It sounds weird even to say that. So again, being overly friendly in the year 2023, you're just setting yourself up to be taken advantage of. Now, in 1964, when a lot of the work was done on the Pygmalion effect, I'm sure it worked like a charm, but not anymore. Continuing. As a caregiver, let's say as a teacher, as a personal trainer, when you're working with people, you want to give them more time and more attention and more of your effort. How does that work in schools today with the way kids are? That doesn't work either. Because again, you end up wasting your time and they see your friendliness as a weakness. So that doesn't work as well. So let's go with the other part. You want to give somebody more chances to succeed. Because if you really care about somebody and their improvement, you want to be there when they fall down so you could help bring them back up, and then you could go over all the reasons why that may have happened, and then you can improve them. However, in the year 2023, the way a lot of young people are and the way their parents are, is that if you give people more chances to succeed, you're just giving them more chances to take advantage of you and more chances to demonstrate poor behavior because nobody is calling them out for their behavior and there's no consequences for their poor behavior. And again, if we're talking about being a teacher or some type of caregiver that you need to spend more and more time and you need to deal with their emotional baggage instead of actually teaching them the things that they need to be taught, that's a difficult proposition as well because teachers, they're already overworked and they're underpaid and they're undersupported. So how does this help? It doesn't. So what's the fix on all this? The fix, I don't know. As far as I know, I'm the only one bringing this up. If you want to know about the Pygmalion effect, all you got to do is go on Wikipedia and it'll give you a great definition of it, which I already gave you. But that doesn't teach you about the Pygmalion effect of how it works in reality because it doesn't work in our society all the time. That's where the problem is. So unless somebody's talking about this in how it actually works with humans in the year 2023, you're not actually talking about the Pygmalion effect anymore. So does it work? Yes, it works, but it works on the right people. Again, high expectations, high standards, and believing in people will lead to a higher performance. As long as you're working with people who are okay with being corrected, they're okay with respecting somebody's experience and authority, which is really amazing. I can tell you, even as a therapist, it takes about 10 years of training before you can actually be a fully licensed therapist and get paid. However, I have 12-year-olds who get their information off of TikTok and they think they know more than me. And then they tell their parents they know more than me, and their parents think that they know more than me. And it's not personal. They think about this with all therapists. And one of the reasons why is because there's 12-year-olds on TikTok they have more psychological influence and more influence on the psychology community than I do. Or any other therapist for that matter. So the environment that we're in is not conducive to the Pygmalion effect working. Again, if you criticize somebody, you're going to get the parents on your back. Here's an interesting little sidebar. I'm going to predict this now. So many parents think that they know better than professionals, such as teachers, that they're going to end up homeschooling their kids. And what you're going to see is, you're going to see valedictorians that are being homeschooled. And people are going to say, wow, that's amazing. More kids should be homeschooled. Except the fact that mommy and daddy who are home, who might be lawyers, they're the ones doing all the work. So mommy or daddy, who's 43 years old, is actually the valedictorian of a high school. And their kid knows nothing. So by the time they graduate high school, they're going to end up maybe going to college, and they're going to fail out because they're not getting the education that they need and that they deserve, frankly. And again, it goes back down to the basics. So I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over. I think you understand my point for the day. Hopefully some of this has been valuable to you. My name is Joe Peroni. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.